Today's video is brought to you by Badge of Honor Co. Clothing. They make martial artist gear for martial artists, by martial artists, in women's, men's, and youth sizes, with hoodies and even some accessories like coffee mugs and drawstring bags available. So check them out at badgeofhonorco.com.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Scrapologist. Dylan here, and today we're going to be diving into the results of UFC 262, Michael Chandler versus Chucky Olives. Alright guys, welcome back to the Scrapologist. Dylan here, and we're back at my office. That was something that we did last week. I'm still trying to decide where I want to record these videos, where is the best environment acoustically. Certainly not here, as you can probably hear the background noise of the AC, but lately I've been working out of my office a lot, which is on NC State campus, so you can kind of see some trees behind me from there anyway. But yeah, I'm working on a permanent location for these videos to take place, but my house is just not ideal. There's just nowhere to put like a YouTube little corner studio. So for now, expect the location to change, and that can result in some changes in the quality on the audio as well. But at least you have this nice little tree to look at now. There's not just that empty blank white space of my wall here. If I do continue to record videos here, I ordered some fight posters from Pride that I think I'm going to put right here. If not, I'll save them for the permanent location where we do shoots. But for now, just bear with me as I try to get the wheels on this thing and get it rolling. So UFC 262, let's dive into it and talk about all of the results here. Let's start bottom to top. I've kind of decided that a lot of other guys like Jack Slack and Luke Thomas, on their shows, they start with the main event because they know that's what people come to hear them talk about. But I think I'm going to start from bottom to top just to kind of make myself a little bit different and to kind of, much like the card itself, build to the main event. So starting off with the prelims here, shall we? Andrea Lee defeated Antonio Shevchenko by submission, triangle, a beautiful triangle in the second round. Late in the second round. Andrea Lee snaps her losing skid, and Antonio Shevchenko has another performance where people just look at it and say, well, she's not as good as Valentina. And I don't think there was any mystery about that before this weekend. She is not nearly as good as Valentina, but Valentina is a once-in-a-generational talent. So it does not look like we're going to have to worry about the things we were talking about last week with her eventually challenging for the belt. I don't even think in this division of flyweight that she, after that performance, I don't think that she could come close to ever challenging for the belt. I am an only child, I will say that. However, I do play Luigi in all the Mario games and Smash, and I know that it must be hard to be a player 2-ass type of person your whole life and to be in the shadow of your sibling. But at least Luigi can jump higher. I can't think of a single thing Antonio Shevchenko can do that's better than Valentina. The good news is that she is constantly surrounded by Valentina and all of Valentina's elite level training partners. Her husband is her coach. There's no reason why she can't get better, but she does not have that natural talent and flair for MMA that Valentina does, sadly. Andrea Lee, she kind of needed that, honestly. That was a big win for her. I think we could have been talking about what's next for her career-wise if she lost that one, even though that Shevchenko name, puts a lot of expectation and a lot of value on your fight. Always nice to see a finish at women's flyweight, regardless of how it came to be. Then you had Jamie Pickett taking on Jordan Wright, and Jordan Wright is who we thought he was. 11-0, now 12-0, winner by a vicious knockout. Jamie did have a little bit of success in the early goings of the fight, but for the most part he was blown out of the water. We didn't get the W as NC, but we kind of knew going into that was going to be a very tough test for Jamie, and hopefully now that Jordan Wright has kind of proven himself, he can get out of those lower ranks, and we can see if Jamie Pickett can bounce back and keep his UFC contract. I think he's got 2 more fights. If I'm not mistaken, he did a 3-fight deal or 4-fight deal. But he should have at least a couple more chances to prove himself at the big show. And the Beverly Hills Ninja, Jordan Wright, I mean, he looks better and better every time out, right? Like, you got to think that we're going to be seeing him against somebody that we know soon, somebody whose name we know, whether that's a short notice fight against somebody in the top 15, or we see him fight somebody just outside that top 15. I definitely think he's done enough to prove that he's ready for a big step up in competition. So we'll see what happens. Lando Venata versus Mike Grundy. The people I was watching the fight with all night, and Joe Rogan too, but the people I watched the fight with all night were just talking about this fight all night because of the score. 30-27 for Grundy. Other two scorecards are for Lando. I wanted to talk. I kind of talked about. I touched on this a little bit in the T.J. Brown versus Kai Nakama fight discussion, but yeah, the judges are very subjective. I don't know what fight they were watching. This is one of those fights where it's just kind of egregious. I don't see how you could see Grundy winning all three of those rounds. So, in my opinion, Lando came close to getting robbed. It was a fun fight, as I predicted it would be. I don't think I actually made a pick on this fight. I don't think I made a pick on any of the prelim fights outright except for maybe Giacare's fight. But yeah, Lando Venata, he always is in fights that are like this, where they're either like close to being a draw or they're fight of the night contenders or both. This one, not the most eventful fight in the world, but I did think Lando had a really good performance, and yeah, bad judging, but he gets the win anyway. Doesn't get completely robbed, but yeah, very close to being a weird split decision there. Ronaldo, Giacare Souza against Andre Munez. This one was tough to watch. This one was tough. Obviously, I'm sure everybody watching this video and their mother knows by now that Giacare had his arm snapped again, the other arm. This time loud enough for everybody in the stands to hear it and react to it. It sounded like a baseball bat being broken over somebody's knee. I don't know if I can call this guy Giacare anymore. I think he might be Ronaldo now. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's 41. He had nothing for Munez on the feet. I kind of predicted that Munez would finish him in my video. I said that I was picking Munez by probably KO. And I really think that the only reason the grappling came into the equation is because things were going pretty poorly on the feet. It was a quick fight overall, only 3 minutes and 59 seconds, but from what we did see on the feet, I did not have a lot of confidence in Giacare. But once he started to turn and he gave his back to Munez, I was like, whoa, this is uncharacteristic of Giacare. He must have so much confidence in his ability to deal with this back take and just give up his back and reverse it into a position that can be favorable to him, as we see Michael Chandler do later on in the event. We'll get to that. But, yeah, he had nothing for him in the grappling either. And when the armbar came, I was like, don't stand up. His arm is so deep in Munez's armpit. A lot of people didn't recognize that armbar when it happened. They just thought that there was some kind of situation with the scramble, and maybe the way Giacare tried to stand up too fast, he might have dislocated his shoulder. But then when it became clear that it was an armbar, even my friend who trains jiu-jitsu that I was watching the fight with was like, what just happened? And it's that cross the body. I don't really have a dummy arm right here, but I got a water bottle. So when you take an armbar, you know, a lot of guys will take the arm like this, and they'll lean back, and they'll try to finish it. What Munez has done, because he can't, you know, lean, I guess he could have tried to take in the arm, but the arm was already under him because Giacare was trying to wrap. So what he does is he takes the arm. Well, if you wanted to finish this from a regular armbar position, you would take the arm and extend it. Let's say the guy's not tapping. You put more stank on it by putting it under your arm like this, and then falling back even further. And that's just a little bit more depth, and you're also going across your body, so if they try to escape this way, there's more leverage this way than just straight down. So the arm was already wrapped around, so he just tucks it into the arm, or really clamps down, more so than even tucking it. He just clamps down hard with that armpit, and then kind of shrimps out this way. And yeah, if your bridge is strong, you can break somebody's arm like that very, very easily. And as you saw, it only took a second or two. Giacare had a moment where he probably could have tapped. I mean, he was the only person who could have felt the danger in that moment. When you're in a position like that, especially where nobody can really see your arm, but maybe the ref is supposed to be in a position where he can, but it's not always possible. That moment, that second right before the break, we'll never know how much Giacare was aware of and how much he knew. But to me, it screamed overconfidence that he was willing to stand up in the guard like that with his arm that compromised and isolated. It spoke to, either old age, making it to where he wanted to cut some corners, or it was a situation where he just thought Munez was not going to have anything for him there, and he did. And sadly, I think just like we saw with Weidman, I think this is the end of old Giacare. I think that he'll be out for a year minimum with that kind of break, and then when he does come back, he'll be 42. He'll have a couple more fights left on his contract, and he'll be, fighting killers again in one of the toughest divisions in the UFC. I mean, the loser of this fight could easily be fighting Jordan Wright if everyone was healthy. So, I mean, think about that. Jordan Wright versus Ronaldo, Souza, So, best of luck to Ronaldo in his recovery, but I do think that is the end. I think that's the last we see of old Giacare. Moving on to the main card, of course, you've got Edson Barboza, Shane Burgos. In my opinion, very, very close to fight of the night. I would say this is my fight of the night, more so than the main event. The main event was obviously crazy and back and forth, but this fight was awesome, and it went over 3 rounds as opposed to being over kind of quick after 1 round like the main event. Shane Burgos' boxing is next level. He might have the second best boxing in featherweight besides Calvin Kattar and Max Holloway. I would put his boxing up there with some of the best guys in the division. Every time he landed that body shot on Edson, it was a big deal. Even if Edson didn't react, it was a super, super big strike, very significant, and that investment was paying off for him. But he was a little too willing to stand and trade in the pocket. And normally I would be like, that can even be fine against Edson, because Edson, you can finish him. But Edson got hit with some bombs in this one and stayed swinging. And not only stayed swinging, but stayed exchanging in the pocket with his hands. He was not in a hurry to backpedal like he normally is. So I think there's been some adjustments from Edson as far as the hands go, and he's way more comfortable throwing the hands and the check hook in ending the exchange with punches. He wasn't letting a lot of exchanges end without him having the last word. And I think that the fight was late in the third, or no, it was kind of early in the third. It was like a minute into the third, but going into that third round, those body kicks on Shane's part and the leg kicks were on Edson's part were beginning to add up in a way that could not be ignored when the finish happened. Obviously, the finish is a one-of-a-kind deal. You'll never see another finish exactly like that in MMA, probably. The only thing I can think of is like a Cub fight a long time ago, but I can't remember who he was even fighting. But Cub hits this guy with like an overhand, and the guy takes it and like holds his arm up, but you can tell immediately that he's compromised. Shane was like in his footwork and bouncing as if nothing happened. Then slowly, he starts to like. And, the next thing you know, he's on Queer Street, and he's just stumbling back. And it's almost like he just flattened out and was done. It was like he went from being fully awake and moving to just unconscious, flatline. A very, very strange, how bizarre, as the great OMC would say. You'll never see anything like that again, for sure. Gacho Pepe, or is that his name? Galfredo Pepe? I'm not sure. I remember when we went to go see the UFC in Charlotte, I think Shane Burgos like punched a guy in his chest. Or no, it was not him. It was what's the guy's name? With the hair. Mirsad Bektik. Oh my God, Mirsad Bektik. I remember when we went to go see the UFC in Charlotte, Mirsad Bektik punched Galfredo Pepe in the chest, and his heart exploded. That was a pretty rare finish to just have a guy get punched in the chest, like square in the heart, and go down. This might take the cake as like the most unique overall finish I've ever seen. Chukagian versus Vivian Arujo. Chukagian. What did I say, guys? What did I say? It would be a long and lengthy one, and that it wouldn't be very fun, and it's not very fun. Caitlin Chukagian gets it done again in a squeaker of a fight, just a mouse's whisper of a fight. Very, 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 very boring. Had a hard time not looking at my phone during this one, and I really don't know what they do with Chukagian after this. What do? Put her in there with Val again? I don't think so. I really think that you can't put her in there against anybody else in the top 3. Let's take a look at Chukagian's record here, because she just got finished by Andrade, right? Yes, she got finished by Andrade. She beat Cynthia Calvillo in a fight that, like all fights, Cynthia Calvillo thought she should have won. Unanimous decision. Yeah, I really just don't know what you do with Chukagian now. This division is so fucked. Really and truly it is. Valentina deserves better, man. She deserves better competition. If she was in a division that was a little bit more stacked, people would be calling her like the female John Jones or the female Khabib. I mean, look at Valentina's record. She's got a loss from Liz Carmouche from a cut. That was the first time she lost before she came to the UFC. Then her only other 2 losses in her career are from Amanda Nunes, the consensus women's greatest of all time fighter. And in the second fight, it was a split decision in which a lot of people, myself included, thought that she beat Amanda Nunes. Granted, it was a stinker of a fight, just an outrageously boring affair, but that doesn't change the fact that I do think that she did enough to beat Amanda on that second fight. So if she had more people in her division that were of the caliber of opponent that Jessica Andrade was, people would be saying that she is, just as good as Amanda, or just as, just as capable as Amanda is pound for pound. They're only 10 pounds apart. The super fight between those two is on the horizon, but I'm so worried that Valentina takes that fight and loses again, and she's just second fiddle to Amanda for her whole career. I don't know if that's the case. I mean, Valentina has a very different game plan for Amanda Nunes than she does for anybody else because of the power that Amanda brings to the table, but there's not really a point in me going on at length about that fight, considering that it has not been made or talked about really yet since Valentina fought. So who knows what's next for Valentina, but what are they going to do with Caitlin Chukagian? Tell her to go up to bantamweight again, or try to cut down to strawweight? Because in my opinion, she's in a very tough spot as far as that women's flyweight division goes. Matt Schnell versus Ajerio Torren. Decision, I went with Schnell on this one because of the wrestling. The wrestling was not present in this fight. Schnell did not want to engage in the grappling at all in an effort to take away moments from Ajerio. But what Torren did is what a lot of these guys do when they come in overweight. He wanted to keep the fight nice and slow. It reminded me of watching like a 135-pound Yoel Romero, because nothing was really happening in the rounds until Torren decided that it was time for something to happen. Schnell was not really able to safely put himself into positions where he could land big shots. Every big shot that he landed was like an overextension of both his will and his body. And I think that a lot of people are seeing this fight and saying like, well, that's the end of my hopes for Matt Schnell as a UFC bantamweight champion. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if he can be a bantamweight champion because, Torren came in, 10 pounds overweight and was out of shape. And when a guy comes in out of shape like that, they said it on the broadcast. I think it was Den Thomas who said, you need to kind of take the fight to him and tire him out. And I could not agree more, because when they went back to their corners the first round, Matt Schnell said something like, he's lulling me to sleep. I don't know what to do. It's boring. It's just like, dude, it's not up to him to bring the fight to you if he's out of shape. He's not going to be looking to make explosive moments and stuff like that if he had a rough weight cut. He's going to be looking to relax as much as he can, and he was relaxing in that first round. I would say he took a round and a half off completely at the beginning of the fight. Second half of the fight is when Torren turns it on, and he makes it look convincing for him, and that's what leads to a unanimous decision win for a guy who came in 10 pounds over. So he gets his show bonus, his win bonus, minus 20%. Matt Schnell makes half of his guaranteed pay because he doesn't get the win bonus, plus 20%. 20% for a guy like Torren is not a lot of money. So, I mean, at the end of the day, I think that there has to be stricter punishments for weight cutting. I think that if you miss weight, especially if you miss weight by more than 5 pounds, you should not be able to even have a win on your record. It should be no contest at best if the fight is allowed to continue. I don't really like it when a fighter weighs in 10 pounds over and the fight still happens, because now Matt Schnell's in a bad position. He's the one him and his team is the one who accepted the fight 10 pounds over, and they didn't lose in their, regular division, but they lost to a guy who's in their division normally. And it's not like it wasn't close enough for them to rematch, and it certainly was not entertaining enough to ask for a rematch. So now you're like back at square one with Schnell, and you can't just go on the internet and be like, oh, you came in 10 pounds over and laid on me. Well, it's like, bro, you knew he was 10 pounds over and you took the fight. And then when you took the fight, you didn't make any kind of effort to capitalize on the fact that he had a shitty weight cut. So, yeah, very tough night out for Matt Schnell, and makes me wonder about what the future is like for that young man, because he doesn't have the kind of camp that creates longevity in personal life or career. He's driving like 3 hours twice a week to get very specific training. I think that it's very important when you get to this level that you're not wandering all around looking for different looks from every gym. There's a time and place in that for your career, but now it's, you're fighting elite level guys. Now it's time to start specializing, and you need to have everything you can get under one roof. He did some camps at AKA. Why not just be at AKA? What's missing at AKA that you can't get anywhere else? Your friends, your buddies, you can see them after the fight camp. You can go train with them in the off season when you don't have a fight signed. But yeah, pretty tough night. Not much else to say about it. Boring fight. And I don't think either fighter's stock really rose from that fight at all. Co-main event of the evening was Tony Ferguson taking on Beneil Dariush in a 3-round affair, and Beneil dominated Tony pillar to post. My pick on that one was correct. My heart said Beneil. My brain was saying Beneil as well, but Tony is an X factor and a variable that cannot be measured, or at least I used to think that, but now it would seem as if the steam is leaving the engine. There was a comment made by Den Thomas. This guy was on fire. I really like the addition of Dean Thomas to the analyst desk. Obviously, he doesn't have the kind of experience you need to be a full-time commentator, but I wouldn't be surprised if he transitions to that role after around a year of doing what he's doing now. Because while he is a very successful coach, his insight into certain aspects of the fight game go beyond that of just analyzation work. Very psychological and almost philosophical musings on his part sometimes. And one particular observation that I found cutting about the Tony Ferguson fight was that for so long in his career, Tony got by on being this guy that was like crazy and unpredictable and tough enough to last long enough to implement the craziness. Now that he is getting older, his style is not translating well to what his strategy was. So now his strategy is changing. Instead of being about toughness and getting hit and then implementing the chaos, now his style seems to be centered around like trying to avoid getting hit at all. And that's not working for him. To say the least. A guy like Beneil he hits way too hard, and if you're just gonna defensively shell up and try to hide from him on the feet, then he's gonna take you down. And I honestly thought that was where the mistake was lying on Beneil's part. I mean, especially in that third round. That third round, I saw Tony continuously trying to set up triangles, and I was like, man, this is how you lose a fight with 3 minutes to go when you're dominating 10-8s on the board, is you get triangled. But Beneil was great passing the guard. He even got stuck in a Darce that I thought could have been deep. under the right circumstances, and he immediately put himself on the safe side. I mean, he just showed a great awareness in the grappling. No surprise, Mundial's competitor champion, no-gi pans champion, no-gi world's winner at brown belt. I mean, that can't be really understated against a guy like Tony, who's also a jiu-jitsu guy. If we're talking about a Dagestani like wrestler, then those Mundials and no-gi pans, all that stuff, that kind of comes into question, because how's that style going to translate against a guy with a different style? But when you're talking about jiu-jitsu versus jiu-jitsu, those credentials cannot be undersold. And I think a lot of people just weren't aware of how good Beneil was on the ground until they saw this, because Tony's a guy who, you know, people thought he was good on his feet because he could trade and stay up, and he could dance around people and jab. I mean, he made a fool out of RDA in Mexico. We all saw that fight. He made a fool out of RDA. He was dancing around him. He was jabbing him. He was, you know, it was a crazy fight for Tony. So, you know, people got this reputation about him that he's good on the feet. And then a couple of fights later, people are like, you know, maybe he's not the best on the feet. You know, he goes 5 rounds standing with Justin Gaethje, and people are like, well, maybe the striking era of Tony is over, but he's always got that ground game. He's sick off his back. He's the Darce King, like, and we're not really seeing that anymore either. And we're not seeing prolonged exposure to Tony doing work off of his back. He's, you know, when he was creating opportunity off of his back before, especially in the Kevin Lee fight, it was quick and with a purpose. And now everything seems to just kind of try to be about mitigating as much damage as possible. So, yeah, Tony didn't look good, man. Tony did not look good. That's 11 straight rounds that he has lost. 11. Let that sink in. Tough. But he's undisputedly one of the GOAT lightweights in this sport. He fought nothing but the best of the best. Would Khabib have mauled him? Almost certainly. He probably would have been 30-0. He would have been the one in 30-0, rather, that took it from 29 to 30. I don't think he stood a chance against Khabib. But we'll never know now, will we? I wish Tony the best of luck, and I don't think that he deserves to be forgotten. And if he has more fight in him, I would be very interested to see who they match him up with. I think that there are some fights out there that could be fun for him, but none of them are against guys that have any interest in winning the belt. And then the main event of the evening, the lightweight title on the line against Charles Oliveira, Michael Chandler. And this was a great fight. A great fight. Especially for a championship bout. These guys went all out. I don't think Michael Chandler I don't think he has another mode yet. I don't think we've ever seen another mode out of him. But yeah, he came out ripping the gas, as he always does. And Charles Oliveira did a lot to survive. I mean, really, people talk about the first round being like, you know, almost the end of Charles Oliveira. Charles Oliveira almost finished Michael Chandler, took his back, figure four'd his legs. I mean, that's worst case scenario. That's the worst position you can find yourself in like a minute into the fight. And Michael Chandler did the exact opposite thing your coach would tell you to do in that situation. He stood up with Charles on his back and like meathead jump back slammed him like we were in the WWE. That never works unless you somehow get your head, back of your head specifically, to go upwards into their chin. That can knock somebody out. That can easily finish someone. But most of the time, you're not going to get any kind of meaningful damage or even escape off of that. And the fact that he even went for it showed to me that he had no idea what he was doing until he got back into the guard. This is a move that like got me from white belt to blue belt when I was doing jiu-jitsu. When I was a white belt in jiu-jitsu, I would always get my back taken by like everyone in the academy. And I got really good at this escape where, you know, let's say that they're trying to finish you with a rear naked choke and you feel this hand kind of come in. Michael Chandler was hand fighting. And, you know, a lot of like this position that he was in with the body triangle around your back, the only thing you have left is your hand fighting. So if you make one mistake here trying to like protect your neck, it's over. But this is where, if you are going to escape, this is where it starts. So you start to see Michael, he doesn't do the textbook escape. The textbook escape would be to grab a hand 2-on-1, as we say. So both of your hands would wrap around their arm like this, and then you pass their choking arm over to the opposite side. That way it's a little bit harder for them to choke. They have to kind of turn their arm. Then once you're safe from that, you kind of take the arm and lasso it over, and you spin. And if you watch the replay of the fight, you'll see that he spins right into the guard. I spilled some water on my hoodie right there. But yeah, he spins right into the guard. That technique, I don't know what it's called, but it is a lifesaver as a white belt in jiu-jitsu. You get your back taken, you immediately can start looking for that, and it works against guys that are got their hooks in. It works against guys that are body triangling you. Until you start to get to a level of like brown belt, black belt, where they really know how to punish you for doing simple textbook escapes, then you start to run into some problems with like getting arm barred from having your back taken and stuff like that. That can be problematic as well. But yeah, Michael Chandler survived the worst position. So once he got up out of that, I was like, now we're in business, baby. Like, let's go. Then the fight ended. The fight was just over almost immediately after that round. Yeah, Chandler almost laid him out. And I think that some refs would have even jumped in and stopped the fight when Oliveira went like down on all fours, even though to me it did look like he was going for an ankle pick, but for a moment he was completely flat. And in that moment, I think a lot of people would have prematurely stopped the fight. But it was not stopped. They went back to their corners, and then almost immediately he catches him with that flush jab. He was looking at a lot of push kicks on the body, just a lot of right down the center straight strikes, which is good because Chandler's threat and power comes from like leaping hooks. And Oliveira's got a mean check hook, but every time he threw it, he was kind of trading. Whereas every time he went straight down the pipe, he was landing flush. And yeah, he landed obviously super flush on that last exchange, and we begin to see one of the biggest problems with Michael Chandler as a fighter, besides the fact that, you know, people say that he gets tired and that he has chicken legs, which is when he gets hurt, he shells up, and he shells up in a way that's very obvious and not very defensive. It's weird to say that somebody shells up and it cannot be defensive, but there's a difference between shelling up and like you keep your eyes straight to the opponent while, like, let's say that the camera is the opponent and you just rocked me and like I know I'm hurt. I can back up and go to the fence while still looking at you, and that way if you come in this way I can like block or hide, and then if you get really close, I'm shooting. Like, now I'm going to try to wrap you up and maybe take you to the fence and buy myself some more time. What Michael Chandler does is he gets hurt and immediately turns and he sprints and he's gone, you know, or he'll just like try to sidestep, jog away with like these wide eyes, and yeah, people just, he makes it very obvious when he's in trouble, and he doesn't really survive. When he gets hurt, he kind of just goes out. So if you can hurt him, you can finish him. That's the biggest criticism on Michael Chandler, and that maybe his chin is not the best. You know, he's been finished a couple times by kind of like flash KO punches. He got flatlined by one of the Pitbull brothers once off of like a simple cross. So yeah, Michael Chandler, who knows if he has the kind of chin that can allow him to come back from a fight like this, win 2 more, and then fight for the belt again. I think it was pretty obvious that the UFC wanted him to win the fight, just based on the promotions, because it is hard to promote a guy like Charles Oliveira, in my opinion. But they kind of wanted more Brazil stars anyway, and hopefully now that the pandemic's ended, they can have his next fight actually be in Brazil, because now they're starting to like get a few more Brazilian champions. They could probably have an awesome, one of those old school like Brazil versus the world cards. I think I'd like to see him defend his belt on that card after we see the winner of Conor versus Dustin. I just really don't think that if Conor wins, like, I'm the biggest Conor fan in the world, and I think if Conor wins, he should not fight for the belt again. But I don't even know if he wants to fight for the belt. Honestly, we could see him like beat Dustin and say he's done. I mean, Conor's very unpredictable when it comes to like who he's going to fight and why, in my opinion. I mean, he went like 3 or 4 years without fighting at all because he just couldn't find a matchup. And then eventually he came back to Khabib, and we all saw how that turned out. So, yeah. Lightweight is back, baby. Lightweight is back. That's all I can say, really, about that fight. As far as the impact on the division overall, lightweight is back. Khabib's gone, and now anything can happen, especially if Conor loses again. If Conor loses again to Dustin, and Dustin ends up challenging for the belt, we've got a crazy division. A crazy division that's full of competitive dudes that all can beat each other, in my opinion. Chandler, what's next for Chandler? Gaethje? I mean, like, why not? Like, let's just do it. It seems like, to me, the school of thought is like, you know, Gaethje is off right now, taking some time off. Chandler just got knocked out, so Gaethje will be ready way before he is. But if you're Gaethje and you just went through everything you went through and lost to Khabib, do you really want to just, are you in a hurry to, like, fight number 4, number 5? Or do you want to wait on the guy who just, you know, fought for the belt and then put yourself in that position? So, in my opinion, it's going to be Beneil versus Chandler, or Beneil versus Gaethje, or Chandler versus Gaethje. Something like that is going to go down in that division. And hopefully when it's all done, and maybe a year from now, we have a lot more clarity on a permanent fixture at champion, because Charles Oliveira is a great talent. He definitely has the most longest road to the title in terms of UFC athletes of anyone ever. He all of his losses came in the UFC. I think 8 losses on the way to the belt, maybe even 11. I can't exactly remember. It was between 8 and 11 losses that he suffered in the UFC on the way to the belt. That's more than anyone. And I don't want to take anything away from him when I say this, but he's not a Khabib, and he's not a guy like Kamaru, where when they get the belt, it's hard for you to see a way in which he loses it. He just won the belt in a very close fight, which means that we could have a carousel of lightweight titles changing hands and moving around in that division. We could even see guys like Kevin Lee come back into the picture if he's willing to cut the weight and get down there again to 155 and do it correctly. The whole division's just blasted open up. You know, like 2 years ago, I would have said we needed 165 to kind of mellow out 170 and 155. Half the guys from 155 that are cutting too much weight would go there, and then half the guys that are too small for 170 would go there, and we'd have like a whole new division. Now I don't even know if we need 165, just because 170 and 155 have kind of taken care of themselves, just like Daddy Dana always said they would. So, you know, that being said, guys, thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Scrapologist. I beg of you to please subscribe and ask your friends to subscribe. Share with your friends and family that love MMA talk and MMA discussion. If you guys have any questions for me, I'm happy to answer them in a video or down in the comments below. Give the video a thumbs up on your way out, and I will see you soon when there's more fights to talk about.